Okay, this is the new patch. We are trying out some of the interactions with the new changes they just did to Druid. Here are the findings so far. Number 1, the baby siege turtle. First thing I checked was, did they fix this? If I hit F2 with a pet out, it should proc Invigorating Bond and Rejuvenation, giving us Prot, Vigor, and Regen. Boop. And the only thing we get is Prot, which is from this skill. So the baby siege turtle is still broken and will not trigger those traits. If I swap to this cat and hit F2, you notice I get all 3 of those boons. So unfortunately, baby siege turtle is still broken. I believe it has been that way since it came out with End of Dragons. However, it has never been more of a problem than right now because honestly, it's a really good pick for these new traits, but we still can't use it. So that sucks. Second thing, autocast F2. So if you put your pet F2 on autocast, so I'm going to hit Control right click this to put the autocast thing, it should use the F2 every time it comes off cooldown, which should trigger Invigorating Bond and Rejuvenation for, once again, Prot, Vigor, and Regen. So if I run in here to attack this, and I tell my pet to attack, and we did not get Prot, Vigor, or Regeneration. So, putting your pet's F2 on autocast still does not proc that trait or that trait. That was a bug in the last patch. It was reported, and it has not been fixed. So do not rely on that. Do not have your pet F2 on autocast. You have to do it on manual. Only mechanists are allowed to autocast that. So, next up, new Vigor requirements. A month ago, we could have 100% uptime on mini boons on our group, including Vigor. At the time, Vigor was provided by Sun Spirit, but they changed that. Now, it's provided by Water Spirit. However, today, they buffed the duration of that Vigor. If you have max concentration, the Vigor from Water Spirit and the Vigor from Invigorating Bond with a pet's F2, oh god. Invigorating Bond has a 20-second internal cooldown, so you need a pet with a 20-second or longer cooldown on their F2. However, the pet is affected by Alacrity, so the cooldown of its F2 will get shorter, but this is not affected by Alacrity, so you need a pet that, after it has Alacrity, has more than 20 seconds internal cooldown on its F2. Okay, so if we hit F2 and also Water Spirit every time it comes off cooldown, we end up with... Let's see, there's 20 seconds on the cooldown of this, 20 on that, 12 on that. Boom. That's it. So this Grandmaster trait, plus this off cooldown, plus Water Spirit off cooldown, you can now keep 100% uptime on Vigor on your group doing that. I don't really like, because it used to just be 1 Spirit. Now it's 1 Spirit, plus a pet skill off cooldown, plus a Grandmaster trait. It's worse than it was. Also, on any fight where you need to bring big burst healing, such as Glyph for Veiled Guardian, or in any fight where you need a ton of cleansing, such as Healing Spring for Soulless Horror or for Slothosaur, you give up giving your group permanent Vigor. Which I would say Vigor is, compared to Regeneration, Protection, 25 stacks of Might, I would say Vigor is less important, but it still kind of sucks because we didn't have to do that before. So definitely a downgrade. It's upgrade from yesterday, downgrade from a month ago. Next up is Prot. A month ago, we could give Prot simply by summoning Stone Spirit, and it was boom, permanent Prot uptime. For the last month, it was some combination of Invigorating Bond, a pet with an F2 that was longer than 20 seconds after Alacrity to use this as much as possible, Verdant Etching with 1 to 2 glyphs or a glyph and Stone Spirit, and then you had permanent uptime. So that was 2 utility skills, or 1 utility skill and the heal glyph, a Grandmaster trait, a Master trait, and pet F2 off cooldown. 5 separate things, possibly a bit less if you were playing, perfectly and had 100% quickness uptime and all that stuff. So it used to just be Stone Spirit, but then it became 5 separate things, including a Master trait and a Grandmaster trait. So today, they upped the duration of the protection you get from Stone Spirit. So now, Invigorating Bond plus the Mighty Roar from this, and if I do this, and if I just do nothing else, and call my pet back because it's like charging in there, 20 seconds of Prot, this is about 20, that is about 20. Now that is without a lack, without quickness. If I had a lack and quickness on me right this second, like this is just barely 100% uptime. But with a lack and quickness, it's easily 100% uptime. So you could, you no longer have to really stress about having a glyph on your bar if you're on a fight that, you don't really feel like there's a need for that. You can. Like, many of the glyphs are great. You don't, but I'm just saying you don't have to. So Invigorating Bond plus Pet F2, like, you know, the Mighty Roar from the Jungle Stalker. I've been using it because it helps with might upkeep. It has a 25-second cooldown, and with Alacrity, it goes down to right about 20 seconds. And Stone Spirit, those 3 things is 100% prot uptime, just barely, and you don't have to worry about a glyph. If you have a glyph on your bar, you'll overcap, and it allows for more leeway for when you have to run around the room all the time, like the new Fractal. And honestly, even if you aren't, you know, using the glyphs less often, there's really nothing better in this trait line. If Natural Stride was still here, I would take it, but they replaced it with this thing. And Celestial Shadow, useful for some PvE fights, but most of the time you would just keep Verdant Etching. But again, it just makes it to where you don't have to sweat about using a glyph like on cooldown like you may have had to do before. Next up, Sun Spirit change. Sun Spirit, they drastically buffed the duration of the might from this skill and reduced the cooldown. So now it's a 20-second cooldown, 30-second duration with max concentration of might, which means if you were a DPS druid, DPS ranger, you could use Sun Spirit just to help keep might up on your party. Even if you had very little concentration, it would not be that difficult to keep up 8 stacks. I would not imagine this wouldn't happen most of the times. I'm just laying out options here. And if you were the support druid and you're struggling to keep up might, this is an easy way of adding 8 stacks on top of whatever you're already doing. So the might from Sun Spirit is far more reliable. They also did it with Spirited Arrival. I'm trying to get away from using builds that require pet swaps as much as I can. You know, basically Spirited Arrival here and in Marksmanship, the Lesser Call of the Wild. Both, you know, generate some might on pet swaps. I don't like doing that because I'm trying to get to where I can keep my second pet for when it's needed for certain occasions. Call of the Wild on Warhorn 5 also the duration got buffed. If you notice with concentration, the cooldown and duration of the boons are exactly the same. So that means with Alacrity and Quickness, they are 100% uptime as well. So in some cases it's awesome, in some cases it feels silly. Like Call of the Wild, that's right there, 100% uptime on Swiftness and Fury. And some might stacks. But the Fury, it's like, you know, we've got Spotter, feels useless now. I mean, I guess for overcapping the Fury a little bit. You know, we also get Fury from Storm Spirit, feels useless. The Storm Spirit's still good for CC. Also, if you take the Nature's Vengeance, so it does the double CC, it's useful for that. But for the Fury, as long as you've got a Warhorn, it doesn't seem needed. Additionally, the Marksmanship, if you were a support and you were bringing less than Call of the Wild for Fury, certainly not now. Anyway, those are some options. And the last thing is the Alac change. So the Alac change, it used to be Grace the Land gave us 0.75 seconds of Alacrity per application. Now it's 1 second per application. They increased it by a quarter second. With Concentration Gear, that 1 second becomes 2 seconds of Alacrity per application on any of your Astral skills. So like if we go in here, and I'm going to run up to this boss here, and I'm just going to do this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and making sure the 4 finishes before I do a 2 because of the quick draw. I wanted to make sure not to mess up the quick draw, and at this point we are right at... Pet's not listening here. We are right at 20 stacks. Now, I don't have Quickness right now. If I had Quickness right now, we would absolutely be at 25 stacks of might. So it is, in Alacrity, we've managed to get up to 30 seconds. So I did, at the beginning of the fight, have to go really kind of, you know, crazy on the Celestial Avatar. Went into it, did 4, and once the 4 was done, did 5 and 2 at the same time, then 4 again because I quick drawed it, and then spam 1 and 2 a whole bunch of times till it runs out. But then I've got a bit of breathing room, which was not the case, or very little the case beforehand. Which is part of the reason I was so much trying to, you know, make the Lingering Light build. By the way, it was working. Which is part of the reason I was enjoying playing Lingering Light so much, is I didn't have to worry about that. So you do have a bit of breathing room now. I still... in general, don't like the fact that we have to use our astral form to give alacrity at all. I feel like imagine if a support scrapper or support Mechanist had to go into medkit to give you boons, and then they got locked out of medkit for 10 seconds after they gave you boons. Or if a Firebrand had to go into tomes to give you boons, and then they were locked out of their tomes for 10 seconds after. That would be the equivalent. So if you play those, maybe you can understand why it's kind of frustrating for us. But again, I've shared my facts, I've shared the facts, and I've shared my opinions on it. That is the changes. Some of the stuff is neat. Druid is definitely better than it was yesterday. In some ways, it's worse than it was a month ago, but it is absolutely playable, absolutely viable. And yeah, just wanted to share the little things and also share warnings about the stuff like, you know, don't have your pets F2 on autocast. You're not going to get the boons. It's bugged. So yeah, there you go. My fellow Druids have been warned. If you learn any other tips and tricks, be sure to put it in the comments down below because I would love to hear them. I don't know everything. I admit that, and I would like to know what I don't. All right. See you next time.